Scarlett, or one of our friends in Hungary, she posted your Bhagavad Gita yesterday. So it should be reaching you in a few days. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And there's a surprise gift as well in there.
Oh my God. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. Om Jnana Timidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militanjena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. So we're continuing with this journey going through Srimad Bhagavad Gita, hidden treasure of the sweet absolute. Congratulations to everyone who's made it so far. And we're going to pick up from verse 16 of chapter 6. So let's chant these verses together, starting from 16. Nat yashnatastu yogosti nachaikantam ashnataha nachati swapna shilasya jagrato naiva charjuna yukta hara vihadasya yukta chestasya karmasu yukta swapna vabodasya yogo bhavati dukkha yada viniyatam chittam atmanyeva vatishtate nishpriha sarvakamebhyo yukta ityuchyate tada yatha dipo nivatasto nengate sopamasmrita yogino yata chittasya yunjato yogamatmanaha yatro paramate chittam nirudam yoga sevaya yatra chaivatmanatmanam pashyanatmani tushyati sukham adyantikam yattad udigrayam atindriyam veti yachana chaivayam stitaschalati tattvataha yam labdva chaparam labham manyate nadikam tataha yasmin stito nadukena gurunapi vishalyate tam vidya dukkha samyoga viyogam yoga samgitam sa nishchayena yoktavyo yogo nirvina chetasa. So maybe Chinmoy, do you want to begin our reading? So it's verses 16 to 23. Oh, Chinmoy Prabhu, are you? Oh, you don't have it in front of you, huh? Oh, okay, you can. I don't understand his hand movements.
He said in chat, he said, sorry, Doya in meeting can't speak.
Oh, okay. Then do we have another volunteer for today? Marie, do you want to read?
I haven't pulled it up yet.
Okay.
So, maybe next time.
Anyone else? Kanakalata, do you want to read?
I don't know if my English is so
good.
Your
English is good.
I will try. 16, right?
16 to 23, yes.
Yes. Oh, Arjuna, yoga cannot be practiced by one who overeats, undereats, oversleeps, or undersleeps. Oh, I lost. For a person who eats, am I right?
You're good, yeah.
Yes. For a person who eats, relaxes, and works in a regular way, and who keeps regular hours in proper measure, his practice of yoga dispels all his suffering. When a yogi withdraws the mind from mundane thoughts and centers in unwaveringly in the self, then free from mundane desires, he is said to be actually situated in yoga or linked with the absolute. It is said a lamp flame situated in a windless place does not waver. Similarly, The mind of the yogi absorbed in the self never flickers in its concentration. The mind controlled by yoga practice is tranquil, pacified by detachment from mundane association. The yogi remains satisfied in the Lord alone, directly seeing the super soul through his purified consciousness. In his spiritual enlightenment, he tastes transcendental internal bliss. He never deviates from the reality. He considers that there is no greater gain in this world. He is undisturbed by even the worst suffering. Know that the attachment of such a state in which all association is unhappiness is served is called yoga. Yoga must be practiced with perseverance and a heart that is never discouraged.
Yeah, very encouraging, very uplifting verses. So we can have a little discussion, and welcome to those of you who have come a little late. Jai Dev just joined. So you see that this is sadhana, right? Following a regulated practicing life. Of course, this isn't sadhana, refers more to like specifically practice our spiritual practices or practices of devotion. But in general, what's being referred to is following a disciplined life. And so that includes sadhana. And so the reason for that, sorry, you've got someone here joining. One of the reasons for that is that we want to quiet the sensory plane, right? And if we live a very stimulating, exciting life, right, that's engaging the senses in a very active way, then that absorbs our attention, right? That absorbs all of our consciousness. And it's like a distraction that's keeping us fixed on the surface, But if we keep our day-to-day life, something that's as uneventful as possible, that's regulated, that's disciplined, that follows a particular pattern, then that helps us to go to a deeper plane. There's less distraction on the surface, and so we can absorb our consciousness in something deeper. So, if we're overeating, right, that causes disturbance in the body, right? Then that's absorbing us. If we're undereating, then that's also a disturbance. Then we're just going to be thinking about eating. If we eat too much, we're thinking, oh, I ate too much. If we eat too little, we're thinking, oh, I'm so hungry, I haven't eaten enough, right? Then we're suffering. Then that's absorbing our consciousness. So we want to eat just as much as we need, not more and not less. Then we don't need to think about it. It won't be something that's distracting us. And same thing with sleeping. If we sleep too much, then that creates some imbalance in the body, and that's going to absorb us. If we don't sleep enough, then the same thing, that's also causing a disturbance. So we sleep just as much as we need to keep our bodies fit, not more and not less. And of course, that may be another thing to remember, is that this may be different from one person to another, right? We all have that sweet spot, right? And I was having some discussion along these lines with Ananta Govinda Prabhu the other day on some related topics, that there's this important principle of yukta vairagya, which means that we are not renouncing the world, but we are using we are using everything in the world in connection to our service life, to our life of devotion, to our spiritual life. And but the key is that we take just what we need, you know, not more and not less. And yeah, I think I'll stop with that. I don't need to go too much into that. So with everything, you know, resting as appropriate, you know, active as appropriate, eating as appropriate, keeping regular hours, you know, trying to rise at a particular time every day, trying to go to rest at a particular time every day. And otherwise, if we're living a very, you know, unrestrained, wild life, then that's going to absorb us. You know? So we want to just keep things like a machine, right? These bodies are basically machines. We don't need to get too excited by these machines. Just keep them oiled, keep them running. And, you know, like a car, you have to I'm learning how to drive. Doya is teaching me. But we know there's so many things you have to do to maintain a car, right? To take you where you need to go. So these bodies are like that. We don't need to get too excited or absorbed in the running of these bodies. Just keep them running so we can go where we need to go and do what we need to do, and that it will have a spiritual focus, you know. That's the idea. And this is a very vivid analogy, isn't it? The flame, non-flickering, the still flame in a windless place, you know. So the true yogi, you know, absorbed in the self, in the higher plane, you know, they're not distracted by these waves on the surface. And this verse, I think of from time to time, verse 22, because it's a very poetic kind of expression, and I've heard Srila Sridhar Maharaj quote this verse, saying that, you know, once you have obtained that, let me see here. See, the translation is not super clear because it's mixed in with these verses, but yam labdva shaparam labam. Yeah, so one labdva is referring to obtaining something. So it's saying, you know, once having obtained that, once having gained that, you know, that vision, that of tattvata, that higher truth, that higher reality, then what will be the result of that, having touched that higher plane? That's manyate nadikantata. One will consider that there is nothing higher than this. There's nothing more than this. You know, this is so fulfilling. This is so wonderful. This is so satisfying. There cannot be anything more than this. And yasmin stito na dukena guru napi vishalyate. That even if one experiences the greatest type of suffering, they will not be disturbed. No. They will be so absorbed in that, that even in the most difficult circumstances, because those circumstances, they're all on the surface, and they're so absorbed in that higher experience, that deeper spiritual experience, that it doesn't touch upon them. It will not affect them at all. So what a powerful place to be, free from the duality of this plane. It's normally like a boat on a ship at sea, rocking this way, that way, here, there. The wind is taking us this way and that way. The ocean taking us this way and that way. Our senses, our minds, they pull us like this in so many directions. But once we have some touch of that higher plane, that will fully absorb us. And whatever is happening down here, it will be very remote, will not affect us. And I really, this last verse is very encouraging and uplifting. Yoga must be practiced with perseverance and a heart that is never discouraged. Oh, sorry, could you need to, okay, just keep our mics muted. A heart that is never discouraged, because sometimes it is very discouraging, right? When we are, it can be a struggle. Welcome, welcome, Jacob, and thank you for sharing your story. Put something.
Can struggle come to an end? While in the body on the earth, can struggle, can it come to an end? The inner psychological struggle, can it come to an end, beginning with the children at the earliest age?
Well, we usually have, let me just finish what I'm saying, and then if you have question after that, then does that sound okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So let me see. Yeah, so this is very encouraging, right? Because for anyone who's sincerely practicing spiritual life, then it is natural that we become discouraged, right? We face obstacles from the environment, you know, we face obstacles within our own self. And another thing is that as we come in touch with greater and greater purity, and as our consciousness begins to clear, then we will perceive our own failings, our own weaknesses more and more. You know? It is like that analogy given of if you have one black drop on a white sheet, it could be very apparent. If you have a black sheet, then you won't notice one black spot, you know. But if you have a white, very clean sheet, then one spot will stand out so much. So it is like that. As we become more purified, then our weaknesses, our failings, our faults, they will become more apparent to us. They will be more disturbing to us. And things that didn't bother us before, we didn't notice before, they will suddenly become very prominent to us. So there can be a great deal of discouragement. You know? We try and we fail, you know, and we see so many issues rising up within us, within and without. This is the thing, right? That the enemy is not on the outside, but the enemy is also within. So it can be very discouraging. But, you know, we must remember, right, that we are depending on higher grace. You know, we are depending on a higher power. And by that power, anything is possible. So to answer Jacob's question, yes, of course, all these bad things, they will certainly end if we persevere on the path. You know? We persevere on the path. We depend on our higher guardians. We depend on our divine guardians. And by their grace, everything is possible. Suffering is only pertinence to this temporary plane. Suffering is experienced only when we are identifying with these physical bodies and this physical plane and this plane of temporary experience. But once we align ourselves with our eternal spiritual identity as loving servants of our loving Lord, then we will transcend all these things. So, Jacob, does that answer your question, or do you want more? That's a simple, short answer.
I'm asking, can suffering come to an end at the earliest age with the children? A final suffering come to an end so that there's no more fear, there's no more anxiety, there's no more envy, greed, jealousy, attachment, loneliness, despair, shame, guilt, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that you become a human being. Because right now you're not human, you're inhuman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Humanity is inhuman, they're not human beings. So can the child at the earliest age be set free so that they don't waste their whole life living with mental, emotional disturbances? What is the one action that if they do it now, right, it will happen?
Okay, Jacob. Jacob, to
Does
be
the
honest,
Bhagavad Gita go into that?
Yeah, I mean, Jacob, to be honest, I'm not sure if you're really that interested in listening to me. Are you here because you have
Bhagavad Gita,
messages
does
to
the
share?
Bhagavad Gita have an answer for that?
Yes, but it's not a 5-minute answer. And it requires some preliminary understanding. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the teachings of the Vedas, but the first thing, okay,
That's why
then,
I'm here.
okay. Well, I'm happy that you're here to hear.
No, but I'm asking the question,
Yes,
does it address
I
this?
let
Does it say there is one action that has no time, right?
well, okay, Jacob.
That is available to all people, right?
There is, if you want only one thing that I would say, that the answer is kirtan. Kirtan means sacred chanting, sacred prayer. Because the Vedas, they prescribe particular practices at different times, through different ages of time. And in this age is known as the age of quarrel, Kali Yuga. And the recommended practice for this age is kirtan, which means calling upon the names of divinity through the medium of sound. And in particular, the Hare, if you're asking for one thing, this is actually a deep discussion, but if you want a 1-minute answer in one thing, then this is what I would say. The Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, this Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This has been recommended for this age. And through that, we can realize our spiritual identity and transcend the suffering that comes along with our material identification. But this is actually a big discussion, and to answer it, it requires some preliminary understanding of our nature.
I just want to know, how long have you been doing this for, chanting?
Well, since I was in the womb.
So are you now totally free of all mental, emotional disturbances once and for all?
This is something that may take many lifetimes. It's not a 5-minute fix. You see, let me explain something about the fundamental teachings of the Vedas, and that is that we are eternal souls, and we originate from a world of spirit. However, we are like a small percentage of confused souls, let's say, who came into the material world with some curiosity. We are actually spirit, and there is a world of spirit, and that is our true home. But we came to explore this lower world of matter, this gross physical world of matter. And we have taken on these material bodies in order to explore this world. And in particular, the real root of suffering is the spirit of selfishness. We are actually parts of a beautiful whole. We are all organisms in one beautiful organic whole. But at the moment, we are identifying ourselves as the center. We want to be number one. We want to be the best. Right? We want to be better than everyone else. We want to be the most beautiful, the most famous, the most popular. Am I right? We all have these kinds of desires. And this is the root of all problems. Everybody wants to be the most beautiful. Everyone wants to be the most powerful. Everyone wants to be the most intelligent. So that is the problem. We want to be in the center. And what we have forgotten is that actually life is more beautiful when we embrace a higher center, when we take ourselves out of the center. It is just like in a natural ecosystem. Every part in the jungle has its particular purpose, its particular place. And when it's properly situated, there's harmony and everything's beautiful. Everything flows very nicely. So the snakes have their purpose, and the spiders have their purpose, and the wind and the rain and the trees and the flowers, they all have some particular purpose that they're contributing to. I just heard in one country, there were some birds that were disturbing some crops. And so the government, they exterminated many of these birds. But then there were some insects that those birds used to eat. And those insects became a greater problem for the crops. These insects were overpopulating so much, and they destroyed these crops and took even more than the birds did. So then in the end, that same government ended up importing some of those same birds from another country. So there's a natural order to things. If we disrupt that, then there's trouble. But if we can appreciate and move in harmony with the natural order of things, then there's beauty, there's happiness, everything flows very nicely. But if everybody wants to be the king of the jungle, if everyone wants to be the lion king, there's going to be problems. So we all have, in the same way, we all acknowledge that there is a supreme power, and whom we refer to as Krishna, the all-attractive one, all-beautiful one, all-loving one. Sri Krishna, the sweet absolute. He is our loving guardian. He is the supreme center. Shri Radha Krishna represent the whole absolute truth as a whole, divine feminine, divine masculine. They are the supreme center. And it is a wonderful thing. And we all have our own particular part to play in this wonderful symphony. And so rather than inventing an identity for ourselves, we are trying to discover what is already there, to realize, to uncover what's already there. There's a central conductor, and we all have our own instrument that we're playing to contribute to that overall beautiful sound. So really our struggle at present is to become free from the spirit of selfishness. And it's a long journey, because we've been
How much time do you need?
That depends on the individual. One person may get it in 5 minutes. Another person may get it in 5 lifetimes. Another may get it in 500 lifetimes. It depends on the individual. According to how much we can align ourselves with the higher flow and leave behind the lower flow and the lower conditioning. It depends on the individual, how much the spirit of dedication moves them, how much they're able to surrender to that higher plane and leave behind the lower plane. It can be in one moment. We've heard of instances like that, So, but we must remember that we have been circling in this plane of selfishness since time immemorial. So it will not be a 5-minute thing for most persons. Okay, looks like Jacob left. I don't think he was really ready. He just wanted to promote his own thing.
My Vishaka, I really, really admire your patience.
Actually,
Me too. That was actually really teaching me a lot. I was so, triggered and wanted to interfere. And I'm like, no, I'm going to learn how Vishaka Didi is dealing with it. He did it kindly, and I'm just kind of happy that he left.
I guess he didn't like that I kept muting him, because I was like, he needs to stop interrupting Vishaka Didi and ready to talk. So I kept muting him, and he got triggered by that. So this is my answer to him if he tries to come back again.
Yeah, actually,
Jai Deva.
Well, we need to
more
people
than
before they come
sorry.
here. I don't know. It's weird.
Actually, more than anything else, I got a little nervous, because when someone is challenging you, they're it just kind of throws you off, because you're used to people genuinely wanting to hear from you. But then someone's coming, they don't really want to hear from you. They just want to challenge you and criticize you and establish their own, philosophy. And then it just really throws you off. And, I was losing my words. And anyway, it's hard to get
his line of questioning wasn't coherent anyways.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say that I'm an old lady and I have 6 adult children, and
I think what I felt was it comes from too much pain inside him, and he needed to vomit out somewhere his anger, his sadness, his pain, his suffering, whatever he has been through, or maybe his children too. So I don't think he came as an enemy, but as screaming, please, someone help me. But he didn't, maybe he didn't come across in the right way. Because I have been through myself, through hell in my life, torture in my life. My children doesn't know anything about it, but I have been seeker about to know why. And I have read in many books. I have Bible that I have read broken. The paper is so thin now that you cannot hold it anymore. But I didn't get my answer until by some, I call it miracle, I come across a book, Bhagavad Gita, and then from then on, I learned about everything about karma, everything about whatever you sow, you get result of, everything what we are going through because of the result of what we have done action in previous, many previous life. Anyway, when I learned about that, I could understand it in a way, but still there are so many, I'm still searching. So somehow I think he came across with so much pain. It was nothing personal to you, but pain, suffering. That's what I felt. I don't know.
You have a very compassionate heart. But you're right. You're right, actually, because if people are comfortable within themselves and they're happy, they don't have the need to assert themselves like that, you know. So you're right. The result, suffering is the cause of that type of behavior. Lack of self-esteem, actually, you know. So yes, that's a very harmonious view, Scarlett. We'll end that discussion on that note. Okay, let's go back to Bhagavad Gita. So I think we ended on, what verse did we end on? We ended on 23, I think, right? Okay. So, oh, yes, well, I mean, that's a good point. Gangalila's bringing up quick fix. Yeah. This is the issue with many ideologies in the world, that they're not able, and you know, it's not about him in particular. It's just in general, there are many of these conceptions that they're not able to get to the root of the issue, you know. And the analogy given in Srimad Bhagavatam is like when you're removing weeds, but without taking them up from the root, you know, they come up again, you know. So there are many different philosophies. They give these, like, sometimes they call them band-aid solutions, you know. They're dealing with the symptoms, but they're not dealing with the real cause, you know. And so they can give you a 5-minute solution, but it's not the eternal answer for all time, you know? So we are very fortunate, you know, that we have come to that, and we have some capacity to be able to hear that and try to follow that to some degree. It is like that with everything in the world, right? All problems in the world, like you can hand someone, you know, money to buy themselves a meal, or you can give them an education so they can, you know, learn how to take care of themselves, you know, and make money for themselves, right? It's like that, you know, so many things in this world. There are short-term solutions and long-term solutions. So our gurus are giving us the real long-term solution. And that requires a greater deal of effort and a greater consideration of all the issues involved, you know. So, Okay, so let's chant verses 24 to 28 together. Sankalpa bhagavan kamam tyaktva sarvana sheshataha manasaivenjiyagramam viniyam yasamantataha shanai shaner upadamed buddhya jiti grihitaya atma samstam manakritva nakinchidapi chintayat yato yato nischalati manaschanchalamaschiram tatastato niyam yaitad atmanyeva vasham nayat prashanta manasam yenam yoginam sukhamutamam upaiti shantarajasam brahmabhutama kalmasham yunjanevam sadatmanam yogi vigata kalmashaha Sukena Brahma Samsparsham Atyantam Sukhamashnute. So what about Gangalila? Will you read for us those translations? So 24 to 20.
Sorry, I don't have the book in front of me. I would.
Oh,
I'm so-
okay. Any other volunteers?
I can read
Maurice?
since I have it up
Grace
this time.
Marie.
All right. That was 24 through 28 we did, right?
Right.
To practice yoga, one must abandon all thoughts that give rise to desires and, using the mind, withdraw the senses from all material objects. By studying the intelligence, one should gradually still the mind and focus it within the self alone. The wavering and unsteady mind should be brought back from whatever mundane objects it pursues and be held within the self alone. The transcendental joy of self-realization comes to the yogi whose passions are quieted, who is peaceful-hearted, free from the defects of attachment, fear, and anger, and always situated in the spiritual nature. Thus absorbed in self-realization, the clean-hearted yogi easily attains the boundless ecstasy of contacting the divine. He realizes the supersoul. Such yoga is of a devotional nature.
Does anyone have any comments at this point?
Well, as I was reading that, I was realizing how much divine assistance I've had with that. Because on my own, I am not one whose passions are generally quieted or who is free from the defects of attachment, fear, and anger. I have rather a bit of an issue with some of those. So I'm just feeling very thankful.
Well, that's a very devotional mentality, appreciating the grace that we've received to be able to overcome such things. That is the proper mentality. Absolutely. Anyone else? Looks like Chinmoy Prabhu might be available to speak now.
The Google meeting is over.
The Google meeting is, thank you, Shri Google.
Yes, it was Pictionary. They were doing Pictionary, so it was important.
One interesting thing that comes up from these verses is that Sridhar Maharaj has mentioned this, and my mother recently, I meant to look it up, but I never did. There's some study on it too, that you have to, like, once your mind starts to go in a particular direction, like there's some like short time frame you have to bring it back before you get stuck on it. And my mother mentioned some study, I think it was like 18 seconds or something really funny like that. But what Srila Maharaj mentioned in one of his talks is he was saying that and he used the expression nip it in the bud, that he said, as soon as you start to see some desire rising within you, like he says, before it begins to take hold, then you have to bring it back, because he says if you don't catch it in the very beginning, then it will take hold, it will take root, and it will be much harder to remove it from your consciousness. So once you see, some particular tendency or desire, unfavorable desire beginning, you have to like stop it, right away. We also hear that about the mood of criticism, this idea of a seed of offense, is mentioned sometimes in Chaitanya Charitamrita, our scripture. There's one example given there of someone who they're very critical of one Vaishnava, of one devotee, and then that develops, and in the end this person ends up committing offenses directly to Lord Chaitanya himself, and this idea of a seed of offense is mentioned there. So it is the same thing, when we see that our mind is going in some like critical way towards a Vaishnava, then we have to like nip it in the bud. We have to catch it, because otherwise it will grow and grow, and it will become worse and worse. And it's something I've also experienced. I've seen sometimes, I see practitioners, and one person in particular I'm seeing it with now. And it's very sad, because I saw them start out with what I felt was sincerity, but they had some critical mindset. And in the beginning, if someone is expressing some disappointment or frustration, you're naturally sympathetic, right? Oh, this person is like this, and they're disturbing me like this. You have some sympathy, because we know everyone is human and everyone has a capacity to disturb others, But then I started to see with this person, a new devotee, that they were finding fault with everyone, throwing everybody out the window. It wasn't just one or two, but everyone, and finally, even the person they took initiation from, they're criticizing them and rejecting them. So then we have to see the dirt is in our eyes, dirt is in our eyes, and we have to become, like the analogy is given, swans, who can take milk from water. So we have to develop that. This is spiritual vision. Try to collect what is beautiful, and leave behind what is ugly. And so as soon as we see our mind going on a particular track, we have to bring it back. You have to bring it back. Otherwise, it will grow and grow, and we will get ourselves into serious trouble. Our faith will be disturbed. We won't be able to see the beauty of spiritual life anymore. When we're stuck when one place, Srila Sridhar Maharaj describes the spirit of fault finding as empiricism, right? Empiricism, means pertaining to the senses, right? If we're too stuck on what we can see with our empiric faculties, then we will lose that spiritual touch, that spiritual feeling. If we're too stuck on what we can see and hear, maybe someone is very brilliant, and the person I'm thinking of, very intelligent, qualified person, but they're losing their ability to detect spiritual substance, spiritual quality. It is very, very sad, because it requires grace. It requires mercy to be able to perceive the spiritual quality in someone. And so if we have a spirit of criticism, that repels grace, that will repel divine grace, and then we won't be able to see. That veil will be put in front of us again. So we have to, and we were just hearing that, was it earlier in this chapter, or was it, in this chapter, it is mentioned, we must make our minds our friends. Our mind can be either our best friend or our worst enemy. Mind is a tool. We can train it. We can input, it's like when you have some app, right? You can choose your preferences, like how it's going to operate for you. So we have to adjust our minds like that, They're just like a tool, we have to train and shape that tool. So it is supporting our spiritual practice, not inhibiting it, not hindering it. Okay.
I'd just like to mention, Didi, something you mentioned, that recognition that our mind is going in the wrong direction. That's very important. Even if we can't, necessarily control where the mind is going at this point, but like there's this recognition, I shouldn't go that way. I think that is it's a very important step in our progress, is to say like, okay, that's not correct. That's not the way I should be thinking. Maybe the mind will still go that way for a little bit, but like there's behind that, there's like this idea, the intelligence is hopefully working, saying, no, that is not good.
Yes, because it's true, we won't be able to stop it immediately, right? Or it's so engendered in us, that's just how the track's been running for so long. But yes, at least we can have that awareness, and that eventually that will allow us to become better in restraining, bringing those things back. And then also another point I want to mention, this is what Chinmoy Prabhu is describing. This is surrender, right? My mind and my senses and my experience are telling me this, but the revealed truth is telling me this, right? The saints, this is how they see it. With my fleshy eyes, I'm seeing it like this. My ego is seeing it like this. But the saints, the scriptures, they're seeing it like this. So this is an expression of surrender, to defer, right, to that higher vision. This is what I see, but I'm going to follow what my guru, even though I don't see it, I'm going to follow, what my guru sees, what the saints see. This is an expression of surrender. We have some comments here in the chat. Oh, Tungarasa has a question. What can be a remedy in a case like that? Oh, sorry, I think that was a little earlier. What are you referring to, Tungarasa?
Just this situation or this person you described now.
That's my question too.
Yeah, because I understand.
I don't know.
I understand that if one can realize his fault, then he can handle. But without that, he can see his own how can I say, negative side, or what's this negativity in him, then what can help?
What can help is the grace of a higher Vaishnava. But because this person, right, they had so much criticism about everyone, but then they were able to connect with one person. Okay, I'm just going into the details now, but I won't say the name. Then they were able to accept one person as an initiating guru, and they were very inspired by them, and were also able to reflect and correct themselves. But now they're also seeing fault in that person, and they're rejecting that person who they took initiation from. And I feel like, sorry, Ganga, do you want to say something?
Yes, but I wait until you finished.
Okay. And I feel like that's the result of their previous offenses to others, right? That they weren't, and this is why it's important to, if we are critical and offensive towards others, then we have to apologize. We have to correct ourselves, right? Otherwise that's going to catch up with us. That will catch up with us later. And this person didn't do that, and now they're seeing faults in the one person who I thought, oh, now finally one person, they could take shelter of and take correction from. And so now I don't know what the answer is. We can pray and we can hope, but I don't know. Their free will is working against their good interest. Then what can you do? What can you do? Ganga Leela, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I think this is a really, it's like a PowerPoint, it's a pivotal point. And I think your example is really, really good too. I think it's what we all go through at some point. It is that pivotal point of like, am I gonna continue to identify with my ego, with actually believing that my mind is like, I'm right, like that is the actual me, is my ego, what I know, and my critical self, versus, okay, you know, I step back, I let Krishna take over, and then, you know, surrender and even doubt my own like conclusions from before, even like, well, I know that's not happening for a fact, but going back and going like, well, I actually may not know from this newfound place of Krishna consciousness. So let's just find out again and again and again. Like, I think it's a really, really big point for me. Maybe just for me in this moment, it is stepping back and into surrender. It's like a practice of surrender, a practice of, can I be more faithful, or not let go of that ego trying to do them.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, Gangalila, because it's a very valuable quality to have. Not everybody has that. No, it's a very valuable quality to have, to accept that there are some truths which are beyond our understanding. There's some vision, there's some conception which is beyond the purview of our current, you know, vision, our current faculties, right? And it can be a challenge, you know, for some persons, like some persons, some practitioners I see, if they're told something that is in contrast to the experience of their own mind and body, then they challenge it immediately. Oh, it is not so. That doesn't make sense. You know? But then there are others who have a more surrendered mood. You know, oh, tell me more. You know, oh, I want to follow this. You know. So it can be challenging, it can be difficult, and it does require a mood of surrender to be able to do that. When spiritual truth like confronts material truth, you know, what are we going to do? You know, do we have the faith, as you said? Do we have the faith, and do we have the courage? You know, Jnane Prayasham Udapashya Namante Eva. This is a famous verse in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. You know, give up our old ideas. Give up our old knowledge, and be able to receive, you know, every day, wipe the slate. You know? There's one comment of Srila Sridhar Maharaj which I like very much. He said what I liked about my Guru Maharaj is that he wasn't just vomiting what he'd heard. And he said every day it was fresh, you know, and every day we had to review our current understanding of what Krishna consciousness is. You know? So it's a living thing. Otherwise, our spiritual practice becomes material, becomes a dead thing, right? So we always need to be awake to a higher, new conception. Of course, we don't want to artificially induce that, right? Like, let's shake it up, let's mix it up, keep it fresh. That's not the idea. But if it's really coming to us, you know, at the right time from the right person, then we will embrace it. Oh, thank you so much. You know, let me embrace its deeper understanding. And, you know, what was true yesterday, it's not that it's necessarily wrong, but that was true at a lower level. You know, that every class 1, class 2, class 3, they all have different truths which are appropriate at that level, right? So they all have their place. They're not necessarily wrong. But where I am, you know, what's this higher, you know, I want to live a progressive, this is the point, a progressive spiritual life. Then I have to, in order to do that, I have to be able to embrace higher, more developed ideas. There's another beautiful quote of Srila Sridhar Maharaj in Sri Guru and His Grace. The spiritual man is going to the spiritual world for a spiritual realization. It is all a spiritual transaction at every point. You know, and we have to be able to, in order to really do that, we have to be open and willing to embrace higher and more refined ideas day by day. Ganguly 18 seconds to decide. I need to look that up. I'm going to ask my mother about it. And Scarlett, you have your hand raised, and we're just about out of time. But let's hear one more comment from Scarlett.
I just want to hear you mentioned something about kirtan. Is it specific kind of kirtan or any kirtan that is good to listen to?
Oh, well, I mean, Krishna, names of Krishna, let's say,
Okay.
and related to the conception of Krishna consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
We are told there is particular power in the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra.
Mm-hmm.
But there are also so many other beautiful prayers. And
I listen to it every day. I listen to it from morning to night. I have it another computer, and I put it, and the whole day this is going on all the time. If I don't have class, then I have the kirtan all the time.
Okay.
So I thought maybe it's a very maybe you have another specific kirtan you mean, or is it the same? It's Mahamantra kirtan.
I mean, one thing to remember is we don't want to get too stuck on technicalities, right?
Okay.
So, we are developing a mood, right? It's not like, like in some, like I see in some places, they like in ISKCON, for example, some members of ISKCON, they have these recordings of Srila Prabhupada chanting the Maha Mantra, and they keep that playing on a loop, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then does that mean you're going to go back to Godhead immediately? No. It's not so. It's
no,
not.
That's what I have read. No, it's not.
No,
I have read about it, and I don't. In my understanding, it's just because I chant, it doesn't mean that now I'm going to go back. But maybe it will help to my next life to be even easier for me to live a spiritual life. Maybe this will be like a training form for next life.
You see what the point I'm trying to make here is that we're cultivating a mood, right?
Mm-hmm.
Krishna is a person. Krishna is a person, right? And it is like say you're calling somebody's name, doesn't necessarily guarantee relationship, but is your whole life centered around that? Are you cultivating a loving relationship? Are you following, the practice of humility, tolerance, and respect? Are you serving the devotees? Are you hearing with sincerity? It's a revolution of consciousness that needs to take place, and many things are involved there. So yes, there's one verse that Srila Sridhar Maharaj quotes, or maybe it's his original verse. I can't remember. It's in our scripture, Prapana Jivanamrita, saying that even if one is unable to follow any of the practices of devotion, what if somebody's deaf? What if somebody's mute, right? What if someone is incapacitated, cannot do anything? So this verse is saying, even if one is unable to follow any of the practices of devotion headed by Shravan and Kirtan, hearing and chanting, if they are able to fully surrender themselves, they will get everything in that way. So we're cultivating a particular mood, and yes, Kirtan is the most powerful practice, but if it's not followed with the right mood, then it won't. Then it will just be a material movement of the lips, or material exercise of hearing. So there are many things that must be included there. If we are chanting all day, but we're also criticizing so many Vaishnavas, then that won't take us anywhere. So there are many things involved. But yes, simply put, and generally speaking, kirtan is the most powerful practice, and we are trying to take shelter of that as much as possible. But like for example, we are not encouraged to play kirtan as background music. Like if we are sometimes in the car, our devotees like to play some recording of kirtan, but then you're talking over it, or you're focusing on the map, and then that is not very nice. That is disrespectful to the kirtan. It's like, oh, I'm playing the kirtan, but it's not just like a checkbox on your list. What is wanted of us from the Lord is full conscious absorption. We're fully giving our heart, we're fully giving our consciousness to this. So I can't hear you, Scarlett. You're muted.
Sorry, I live alone. I don't have anybody here. I don't talk to anyone. So either I am with Zoom classes, or I just listen to kirtan, or I read.
Wow, look at that.
This is my Srimad Bhagavatam.
Wow.
This is my Srimad Bhagavatam.
Wow.
See? So either I read, or I listen to kirtan, or I sit with the class, and I am alone. So, and my children knows they shouldn't call me or anything. If they want something, I have my mobile on mute, so they just send a message, and then sometimes I'm looking at it, but not more. So I don't disrespect kirtan. I know it's not good to listen and then at the same time talk to someone else. I know it's not good, so I don't do this way. I listen, I really listen, and I sing with it myself.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Very nice, Scarlett.
I try to practice so that I can really take it in, everything that I learn, everything, practice it in. But can I ask you a question? Is it criticizing if I ask a question that I have read this, but I don't get it, or
no, that's not criticizing. That is good. That is good, because that means you have some doubts and you want to be free from the doubt.
Okay.
So that is sincere. That is sincere. That is not critical.
No, okay.
It is good. It is good that you do that, because that will make your faith stronger.
Okay.
Because otherwise, if you have some doubt and you're afraid, oh, I will criticize, then your faith will not become stronger. So it is good to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone have any last comments, or should we end for today? Well, it's been a very lively meeting today. And Premasinda Prabhu came in a little later. Welcome, Prabhu Dandavat. Okay, well, should we ask Gangalila to pray us out for today? Oh, and let's just, for the record, we're ending on, for my record, we finished verse 28, right? 628. Okay, so next week, pick up from 29. All right.
629.
Yeah, we'll pick up, yeah.
It was 629,
Scarlett's a
right?
star student. 629, yeah, we'll pick it from 629.
Okay, thank you.
Is Gangalila available? Maybe not. And Chintamani, I think, is also occupied. Okay, we'll close there. Thank you all so much for your wonderful association, and I look forward to next week. Jai Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai.
Jai.
Yakshat Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. All the assembled devotees and sincere seekers ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai. Gaur Premanand.
Jai.
Jai.
Dandavat.
Dandavat.